My cousin got the CEO role I worked 9 years for, so I joined our rival company, and now my family acts like I don't exist. I'm a 30-year-old woman, and not too long ago, my family completely cut me off because I walked away from the family business and stood up to my uncle, who happens to be retiring this year. I'm not here to play the victim. I genuinely want to know if I crossed a line. Let me back up a little for context. My dad, who would have turned 63 this year, had two younger brothers, Brian, who's 59, and Scott, who's 56. The three of them inherited my grandfather's real estate firm with the idea that they'd run it together as equal co-owners. That was my grandpa's dream, to see his sons working side by side, keeping the business in the family. But 6 years after Grandpa retired, Uncle Scott made a move that shocked everyone. He decided to leave the firm and launch his own competing business. That didn't go down well. The family basically excommunicated him after that. He was treated like a traitor. Nobody's spoken to him in 16 years. He's erased from every family gathering, every group photo, every conversation. It was like he never existed. I was raised to follow suit, ignore him, forget him, pretend he was a ghost. Then, 3 years ago, everything changed. My dad passed away from double kidney failure. He hadn't been in great shape leading up to it, and he'd been slowly preparing me to take over, just in case things got worse. We didn't expect him to die so soon, but thankfully, I was ready to step into his shoes when the time came. But I hadn't just shown up out of nowhere. I'd been working at the firm ever since I graduated from business school. For nearly 9 years, I had been learning everything from the ground up, working closely with both my father and Uncle Brian. My long-term goal was to become a partner, just like my dad had always hoped for me. After Dad passed, Uncle Brian became the new CEO, and I was promoted to CFO. That was 3 years ago. I've been holding that role ever since. And to be honest, I expected that when Uncle Brian eventually stepped down, I'd take over as CEO and finally become a partner. But then, just 10 days ago, I found out something that completely blindsided me. My uncle had decided to make his son, Dean, a partner instead of me. I'd still be CFO, but that was it. No promotion, no partnership, no recognition for the years I'd put in. To be clear, when my dad was still alive, he was CEO and Uncle Brian was CFO. After my dad died, Brian stepped into the top spot and I moved into the CFO role. So now, with Brian planning to retire soon, it would only make sense that I'd be the one to step up next, right? Apparently not. Dean, my cousin, is 23 years old and just graduated last year with a degree in economics. That's it. No work history, no hands-on experience, no time spent in the trenches like I had. He hadn't been involved in the company at all. He just showed up out of nowhere, and suddenly, he's in line for the top job? I didn't even hear it from my uncle. It came from my mom, who had spoken with Dean's mom, my aunt. She told my mom that I had turned down the opportunity to be a partner, and that's why my uncle was giving it to Dean. That was news to me. I had never refused anything. There had never even been a conversation. As soon as I heard that, I called Uncle Brian. I thought maybe there was some mistake, some misunderstanding. But no, he told me point blank that he was seriously considering naming Dean as CEO and partner because he planned to announce his retirement soon. I was stunned. I reminded him that Dean had literally never worked a day in the company. He spent the past year doing whatever, traveling, soul-searching, whatever privileged nonsense. He's not even close to being ready. And that's when my uncle told me where I fit in. According to him, Dean would be CEO in name, but I'd still be running things behind the scenes. I'd be mentoring him, guiding him, making sure the company didn't fall apart. I'd still be CFO, and I'd be doing all the work, but without the title or respect. That didn't sit well with me. I told him straight up, I've put in nearly a decade of hard work, and I deserve the role. Dean hasn't earned any of this, and I wasn't going to just sit back and let him skip the line. If Uncle Brian was serious about this, then I'd step down and walk away from the company entirely. He tried to calm me down, said I was overreacting. He claimed he was doing this for Dean's future. He said if he didn't hand Dean the CEO title, Dean might leave the family business entirely, just like Uncle Scott had, and Brian couldn't let that happen. This, apparently, was the only way to keep Dean in the fold. Then he tried to soften the blow by telling me it would all just be for show. Dean would have the title, but I'd be the one actually running the business. He even said Dean would look up to me. Yeah, right. I tried to strike a deal. I said, fine, leave me as CFO, but at least make me a partner. I've earned that much. He said he'd have to check with Dean first. That's when I knew I was done. I told him flat out, make me partner or I'm leaving. That was my final offer. We ended up arguing. Eventually, he told me it was a free country and I could do whatever I wanted, but his decision was already made. He'd discussed everything with the board, and in a couple of days, he'd be making the announcement. That was one of the worst moments of my professional life. I thought I had a solid relationship with my uncle. But clearly, when it came to business, I had overestimated how much he valued me. Honestly, I shouldn't be surprised. Dean has always been the golden boy, spoiled, coddled, handed everything. Of course, Uncle Brian was going to pick his own son over me. I never really stood a chance. I was devastated. My mom even suggested I talk to a lawyer and explore legal options. But I had something else in mind. Something that would sting even more. Some of you might have already guessed what I did next. For those who haven't, here it is. That same day, I sent an email to Uncle Scott, the one the family had ghosted for 16 years. I told him everything, gave him a quick rundown of what went down, and asked if he'd be willing to bring me on board. I didn't want to sit around feeling sorry for myself. I wanted action. I wanted revenge. So I reached out to the black sheep of the family without a second thought. And within 24 hours, Uncle Scott replied. He offered me the CFO position right away and said that when he retired in a couple of years, I'd be in line to become CEO. Not only that, he agreed to make me a partner too, as long as I was willing to share some inside knowledge to help him compete with the old firm. A few days ago, we met in person for the first time in years, and honestly, it felt good. Really good. I'd only cut him off because my parents pressured me to, not because I had any real issue with him. He was actually my favorite uncle growing up. Until I was about 15, we were really close. After the fallout years ago, Uncle Scott was pushed out of the family, and I never spoke to him again. Until now. Growing up, I never got a clear explanation about what actually led to him leaving the business, and even now, when I finally sat down with him, he chose not to share the full story. That's his choice, and I've got to respect that. Still, he told me he was genuinely surprised that Uncle Brian would pull something like this. Apparently, when my dad was alive, Brian wouldn't have even dared to make a move like that. But Uncle Scott wasn't exactly sad about how things turned out. If anything, he was thrilled. From his perspective, it played perfectly into his hands. He told me he'd be more than happy to have me join his company. Said he'd always heard good things about me. Since his firm was our main competition, they'd been keeping an eye on us over the years. According to him, he already knew I'd played a major role in shaping the company's recent success. He was excited to finally have me on his team instead of watching from the outside. He also added, half joking, half serious, that unlike Brian, he didn't have a son to swoop in and take my place, so there'd be no surprise successors to worry about. We finalized everything pretty quickly. I handed in my resignation that same day. Uncle Brian, for his part, didn't even flinch. I sent him a formal message letting him know I wouldn't be coming in for the 2-week notice period. He had made it crystal clear that my presence wasn't essential anymore, so I figured there was no point pretending otherwise. His reply was cold and simple. He already had someone lined up to replace me, and there was nothing to worry about. That was that. No calls, no further messages, nothing. Yesterday, Uncle Scott and I posted a picture together to celebrate the news that I was officially joining his firm. Later that evening, I went out to dinner with some of the senior team members to get to know everyone before officially starting. And let me tell you, saying my family is in meltdown mode right now would be putting it lightly. Ever since I posted that photo, my phone has been going insane. Missed calls, angry voicemails, furious texts. I haven't answered a single one, but it's obvious they're all furious. Uncle Brian is absolutely losing it. He's already labeled me a traitor and promised that there will be consequences for what I did. Let him try. Other relatives have chimed in too, making it very clear they think I've done this out of spite, just because I didn't get the partnership and Dean did. And yeah, they're right about one thing. I did feel wronged. But if none of them were willing to speak up when I was being unfairly sidelined, they don't get to judge my actions now. They had their chance to support me and they stayed quiet. The only opinion I truly care about is my mother's, and even she's disappointed in me. That caught me completely off guard, especially since just a few days ago, she was pushing me to get a lawyer and fight back. Now suddenly, she thinks I've gone too far. She told me there's a lot about Uncle Scott's past that I don't know, and she doesn't think it's her place to explain. That really frustrated me. If Noah's going to tell me why he was cut off in the first place, how am I supposed to make an informed judgment? I'm a grown adult. I think I can handle the truth. They don't need to keep treating me like I'm too fragile to know what happened. Based on everything I've seen from Uncle Scott so far, he's been nothing but kind and respectful to me. I haven't seen any signs that I should cut him off again. But my mom insists the family's upset with me and says she's hurt too. Then she told me there wasn't much she could do if I'd already made up my mind. When I tried to keep the conversation going, she just ended the call and said she needed time to process all of this. Now, I'm stuck feeling completely torn. Did I make a huge mistake by jumping ship and joining the competition? Or did I just finally stand up for myself after being disrespected? Edit, for those asking how I managed to land a new job at Uncle Scott's company so quickly, honestly, it was pure timing. His CFO was planning to retire in a couple of months, and he had already been scouting for a replacement. I just happened to reach out at the perfect moment. It felt like the universe had my back for once. Some of you also wanted to know what Uncle Scott was like before he left the family. From what I remember, he, my dad, and Uncle Brian were incredibly close. They were practically inseparable. Then something massive happened, and it tore them apart. I know there was a huge fight, and that's when he left to start his own business, but I still don't know the exact details. Nobody talks about it, not then, not now, so I can't give you any real insight there. What I do know is that my relationship with him was always good. I said that in my first post, and it still holds true. Even when I reached out after all these years, his reply was warm, respectful, and welcoming. I honestly don't understand why my family paints him in such a terrible light. They've called him manipulative, narcissistic, egotistical, you name it. But not once in any of my conversations with him have I felt he was any of those things. I'm honestly confused about who I should believe. The last time I trusted a family member, Uncle Brian, I ended up getting burned badly. So this time, I need to be cautious. Right now, my mom still isn't talking to me, and that's what hurts the most. I've been texting her every day since this all blew up, but she hasn't responded once. I don't even have my friends to lean on because this situation feels too personal and messy to explain. Update number 1. It's been 3 days since everyone found out I joined Uncle Scott's firm. After the initial firestorm of backlash, it's just gone silent, like I don't exist anymore. I guess it makes sense. I've aligned myself with the family's so-called traitor, and now they're treating me the same way they've treated him all these years. Still, I have no clue what caused the rift in the first place. And honestly, at this point, I don't think it even matters. I've chosen my side. There's no going back. I can't just undo this and run back to Uncle Brian's firm, not that I'd want to. I need a job. I need financial stability. I've gotten used to a certain lifestyle, and I'm not about to give that up. So this is where I am now, and I'm going to make the most of it. I did talk to Uncle Scott about how the family's treating me like an outcast. He looked genuinely sad. He told me this is exactly what he went through all those years ago, and he warned me it doesn't get easier overnight. But maybe, just maybe, I'll have it a little better. He thinks there's a chance they'll come around eventually, especially since I'm younger and closer to some of them. Until then, I've got no choice but to ride this out. I asked him again what exactly went down between him and the rest of the family, but just like before, he wouldn't say a word about it. And like I said, my mom still hasn't said anything to me. I've been trying to reach out every single day, and I've gotten nothing back. That silence cuts deeper than anything else right now. Work is about to pick up in a big way, and I know I won't have much time to dwell on it, but I can't lie. This whole thing still weighs heavy on me. I've got a ton on my plate now that I've just started this new position, and honestly, there's way too much for me to catch up on. If my mom decides she wants to talk to me, she knows where to find me, but I'm done being the one reaching out. Update 2. It's been 6 days since I officially started working with Uncle Scott, and so far, things are going great. The paperwork to finalize my partnership in the company is still in progress, but I completely trust him. He's been nothing but supportive and respectful toward me. Honestly, based on how he's treated me, I have to say, my entire family was dead wrong about him. Uncle Scott's been very open about how everything works. Unlike my old company, his isn't privately held, so any major decisions, like adding a new partner, need to be approved by the board of directors. But he told me not to stress about it. He owns the company and serves as CEO, so the board process is mostly just a formality. I've already met most of the key people, and everyone's been warm and welcoming. They know what I bring to the table, and they respect my experience. Just like Uncle Scott said, I'm not too worried. Professionally, things are solid. Personally, not so much. I haven't spoken to my mom since our last phone call, and I've honestly lost track of how many days it's been. The silence is heavy, and I've been feeling pretty isolated. No one else in the family has reached out either, which hurts more than I expected. Thankfully, I still have a couple of friends from Uncle Brian's company who've kept me in the loop. Apparently, they announced my departure internally, but conveniently left out the part where I joined Uncle Scott's firm, probably because it doesn't look great when someone in my position quits and joins the competition. They've also announced that Dean will officially take over as CEO in a couple of months once Uncle Brian retires. Not only that, but Dean is also being named a partner, and they're throwing some kind of company party in his honor. Meanwhile, the CFO role I left behind is being handed to an employee who always had authority issues with me. It honestly feels like they picked her just to get under my skin. But honestly, I just feel bad for them. If she couldn't handle reporting to me, I doubt she'll have any easier time dealing with what's coming. That's their mess now. I spoke to a few of my old coworkers and told them they were more than welcome to join me here at Uncle Scott's firm. We can offer better pay and a better future. It's completely up to them, of course, but I could tell that a few are seriously considering it. They're not thrilled with the new leadership and might want to get out before things take a turn. I've made the offer. Let's see who decides to jump ship. Update 3. It's been nearly a month since I joined Uncle Scott's company, and things couldn't be going better. I'm officially the CFO and a partner now, and I couldn't be happier about it. My mom still isn't speaking to me, but at this point, I think I've made peace with it. That said, there's some good news. A few of my friends from my old company have quit and applied here to work with me. Uncle Scott was pretty thrilled about that. Uncle Brian, on the other hand, wasn't quite as pleased. A few days ago, after 4 employees left to join us, he actually showed up at my house with Dean. I'd just gotten home when they started ringing the doorbell. I checked the intercom, saw who it was, and decided to speak to them through it instead of opening the door. I told them I wasn't interested in any conversation and that they needed to leave. I already knew why they were there, to accuse me of stealing their employees. But I hadn't forced or manipulated anyone. These people made their own decisions. And deep down, Brian knew that too. Still, he was livid. He started yelling through the intercom, accusing me of poaching staff and threatening legal action. I knew there was no actual legal case here, but I let him scream until he tired himself out. Because what else could I do? There was no reasoning with him while he was like that. When he finally took a breath, I warned him. If they didn't leave immediately, I'd call the police. I also added that with so many people already leaving the firm, the last thing they needed was more negative attention, especially if it started to look like their leadership was unstable. That's when Dean decided to chime in. He accused me of being disrespectful to Uncle Brian, claiming I was selfish and had no gratitude for what his dad had done for our family, especially after my dad passed away. Honestly, that speech was laughable. I reminded him that I had just as much respect for Uncle Brian as he had for me, which, frankly, wasn't saying much. I pointed out that my father had also worked incredibly hard to build that company, and after he passed, I did the same. Dean, meanwhile, had never lifted a finger. Then I called it what it was. Dean got his role as a handout. The only reason Uncle Brian made him CEO was because Dean demanded it and refused to accept anything less. Brian had even told me directly that Dean would just be a figurehead and I'd be the one running the company. But clearly, loyalty had its limits. I told Dean all of this, word for word, so he could understand exactly how his father saw him. After that, things got real quiet. I could hear the two of them arguing in hushed tones, and a few seconds later, I heard them walking back to their car and pulling out of my driveway. Good riddance. The next morning, I noticed that both Brian and Dean had blocked me. Honestly, that was the best gift they could have given me. My life is slowly turning around. I know this entire situation would have devastated my dad if he were still here, but at least I know I'm not to blame. If anyone tries to guilt me about it now, they won't get far. I know my worth, and I know the truth. The only person I'm still holding out hope for is my mom. We were always close, especially after Dad passed, and I miss her every day. I still keep wondering if she'll text me one day, maybe just to say hi. She hasn't blocked me, so maybe the door's still open a crack. If the loneliness gets too loud, I might reach out again. But for now, I'm just trying to figure out what feels right. Update 4. Hey again. It's been almost 6 months since my last update, and a lot has changed since then. First off, Uncle Brian is officially retired, and Dean has taken over the company. So far, he's just coasting, keeping things the same, not really innovating. Maybe things will work out for them. Maybe not. Either way, it doesn't affect me anymore. In the meantime, we've had a steady stream of former employees from Brian's firm switching over to our company. I love seeing those familiar faces in the office. It's like reuniting with the people who always had my back. Now, about my mom. We still haven't spoken, but I think I finally understand why. A couple of weeks ago, Uncle Scott and I were having dinner and drinks at his place. His wife had gone to bed early, so it was just the two of us. After a while, I decided to ask him directly what had really gone down between him and the family. I told him that now that I'm older and we work together, I deserve to know the truth. And for the first time ever, he told me everything. It happened years ago, during Thanksgiving dinner at our house. My mom had asked him to help out in the kitchen, and he followed her in, not suspecting anything. But once they were alone, she came on to him. She said she'd always had feelings for him, even though she was married to my dad. He panicked and tried to leave, but just then my dad walked in and caught them standing too close. My mom immediately flipped out and accused Uncle Scott of trying to make a move on her. Dean and I were in our rooms, so I don't remember any of this, but apparently it got ugly. My dad kicked Uncle Scott out that night. Later, my mom started spinning lie after lie to cover it up. She told Uncle Brian and my father that Scott had plans to steal money from the business and start something on his own. Eventually, they confronted him, told him he needed to back off, or they'd ruin him. So he walked away, started over, cut ties. And that's the story no one ever wanted me to know. Hearing that broke something in me. I never would have imagined that my mother, my own mother, was the reason this family tore itself apart. But that's the reality I'm living with now. After learning the truth, I realized I had no reason to stay tethered to any of them. Like Uncle Scott once did, I've decided to walk away from this dysfunctional family too. It hurts, but it's honest. This is my life now, and I'm finally okay with that.